What if I told you that everything you think, every desire you chase, every fear you run from, isn't actually you? What if you've never heard your own mind speak because it's been drowned out by noise your entire life? And what if I said that Buddha didn't become enlightened by learning something new, but by unlearning everything until he sat in absolute silence and found the secret power we all ignore? This video is not just about Buddhist philosophy, it's about how to take control of your mind, not by dominating it with force, but by going in the opposite direction, becoming so silent on the inside that your very presence begins to shape reality. This is total mind control, not over others, but over the one thing that has controlled you your entire life: your own thoughts. And yes, we're going to go full Mr. Beast mode, but instead of giving away money, we're giving away something way more valuable: insight, inner freedom, and a kind of mental clarity that feels like realizing you've been dreaming your entire life. But first, I need to ask you something. Have you ever watched your own mind? Not just thought about thinking, but actually observed how thoughts arise on their own, like clouds forming and disappearing in the sky of your awareness? I used to think I was my thoughts. I thought that voice in my head was me. But then I tried something. I sat down, closed my eyes, and just listened. And what I found was shocking. The voice never stops. It talks about what happened yesterday. It worries about next week. It judges everyone, even me. It plans. It regrets.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
It fantasizes, and none of it is in the present moment. So I started wondering, if I can observe that voice, then who am I? Because the observer and the observed can't be the same thing. This is the first step toward what Buddha discovered under the Bodhi tree. We're living under an illusion, and the illusion is not the world. The illusion is the mind's interpretation of the world. Let's go deeper. We think we want control over our careers, our relationships, our future. But the one thing we never try to control is the very thing that filters and distorts all of it: our own mind stream. We don't realize that we're hypnotized by language, by social scripts, by trauma, running programs that were installed long before we ever consented to them. And here's the twist: you can't control the mind by force. You can't think your way out of thinking. That's like telling fire to put itself out. So what did Buddha do? He stopped completely. He didn't suppress thought. He didn't fight it. He sat down and allowed everything, every thought, every craving, every fear, until he discovered the ultimate secret. There is a space behind thought, a silence that doesn't depend on silence in the world, a stillness that is always there, waiting, like the sky is always behind the clouds. That stillness is what we're after, because from there, you don't just think, you see. You see your thoughts for what they are: patterns, not truths. Imagine this: you're walking through a forest, and suddenly a tiger jumps out. Your heart races, your body floods with adrenaline. You survive. That's a real threat. But now imagine you're lying in bed a week later, and your mind plays that scene again. Your heart races again, but the tiger isn't there. Most of us are living in the second scenario. The mind keeps summoning tigers that aren't real. And every time we believe them, we react, we suffer, we spiral. So here's the big question: what would your life look like if you stopped reacting to every thought as if it were true? This is what Buddha meant by liberation, not escape from the world, but escape from the mind's version of the world. That's the difference between suffering and freedom. And here's where it gets wild. When you stop reacting, when you cultivate that inner silence, something strange happens. You begin to see through the patterns of thought. You realize that anxiety isn't something you have, it's something your mind produces. And with enough awareness, it stops producing it, not because you defeated it, but because you saw through it. This is total mind control, not by domination, but by disidentification. You are not the storm, you are the sky. But wait, let's take this even further. What if the mind isn't your enemy at all? What if it's simply a tool that's malfunctioning because it was never meant to run the show? You don't hate your phone when it glitches, you just reboot it. Meditation, contemplation, and silence, they are the reboot process. And once you get quiet enough, the noise loses its grip. You start seeing how every desire is a form of escape, how every fear is a misinterpretation, how wanting something to happen is just your mind refusing to accept what is. And then something even more powerful arises: presence. The power to be here fully, not lost in memory, not projecting into the future, just now. And here's the twist: when you're fully here, when the mind is no longer controlling you, your actions become clear, your attention becomes razor sharp, your presence becomes magnetic. People feel it. Animals sense it. The world responds to it. Because you're no longer reacting, you're creating. This is what all the great sages, mystics, and spiritual masters found. And it's what science is now catching up to. Neuroplasticity, default mode network, mindfulness, it's all pointing to the same truth. Your inner silence is not emptiness, it is power. And yet, most people are terrified of silence. Because when we get quiet, we start to see everything we've been running from: the trauma, the pain, the loneliness. But here's the paradox. Only when you face those things in silence do they finally dissolve. It's like diving into a storm only to find there's calm at the center. So let me ask you something hard. What are you afraid you'll find if you get completely still? Who would you be without your story? Without the voice in your head constantly narrating your life? Would you still exist? That's the terrifying edge of awakening and the beginning of freedom. Because the truth is, you don't exist the way you think you do. You're not a fixed identity, you're a process, a flow. Your awareness itself, temporarily identified with a name, a body, a story. And the moment you see that, you become unshakable, because nothing can be taken from you when you realize you are not a thing, you are the space in which all things appear and disappear. So, how do we live from that place? How do we walk through the world with the kind of silence that doesn't just ignore noise, but transforms it? We start by practicing presence, not as a technique, but as a way of being. We catch ourselves in the act of believing thoughts. We pause, we breathe, we return to now, and we do it again and again, until the silence becomes more familiar than the noise, until the stillness inside becomes louder than the storm outside, until we stop reacting to life and start creating from awareness. And that's when something magical happens. Your mind becomes your ally. Your thoughts become tools, your emotions become guides, and your life becomes a living meditation. But we're just getting started, because in the next part, we're going to go way deeper into the mechanics of thought itself, into how to reprogram the subconscious, into how Buddha's silence wasn't passive, but the most powerful force of transformation the world has ever seen. When we left off, we had just touched the edge of something most people spend their whole lives avoiding: the deep silence within. Not the silence of a quiet room, but the silence of no longer believing every thought that passes through your mind. That silence is not nothingness, it's power, it's potential, it's the raw field out of which your entire reality is being created right now. So let's go even deeper. Because the truth is not just that your thoughts distort your experience, it's that your thoughts create your experience. You are not observing a fixed world, you are interacting with a living field of possibility, and the filter you use is your own mind. Sounds mystical? It's not, it's mechanics. Let me explain. Every thought you have is a frequency, a pattern of energy, and that energy doesn't stay locked inside your head, it radiates outward, into your nervous system, into your body, into your emotions, and into your behavior. And behavior becomes habit, habit becomes identity, identity becomes destiny. So when you think, "I'm not good enough," that's not just a thought. It becomes a posture, a tone of voice, a way of walking into a room. It becomes the micro decisions you make, the people you attract, the opportunities you subconsciously reject. Over time it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because the universe is punishing you, but because your reality is shaped by the lens through which you perceive it. This is why Buddha said, "With our thoughts we make the world." But here's the twist most people miss. It's not about replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. That's like painting over mold without treating the foundation. The real transformation comes from seeing through the illusion that any thought is ultimately true, because all thought is interpretation, and interpretation is not reality. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine a person walking into a crowded room. They think, "Everyone's looking at me." That thought creates anxiety. That anxiety creates awkwardness. People notice the awkwardness, and maybe they avoid them. The thought becomes proof of itself. Now imagine the same person walks into the same room, but this time they think, "I bring calm energy wherever I go." That thought creates ease. That ease invites connection. People respond with warmth. Again, the thought becomes true. So which one was reality? Neither, or both, because the world is not just happening to us, it's happening through us. Your mind is not a camera, it's a projector, and the images it projects are the beliefs you carry, often unconsciously, and this is where inner silence becomes the ultimate tool. Because only in silence can you see those hidden beliefs. Only in presence can you interrupt the loop long enough to ask, "Is this thought true? Who would I be without this thought? What is the deeper silence behind it?" These questions are not just philosophical, they are surgical. They cut through the noise. They expose the architecture of the illusion. And once you see through a thought, it loses its grip. Not because you pushed it away, but because you understood it. You saw it arise, you saw it fall, and you realized, "I am not that." This is what Buddha meant by non-attachment, not detachment, not numbness, but the ability to let thoughts arise and pass without being hijacked by them, to observe without clinging, to act from clarity instead of reactivity. And it gets even deeper, because once you stop identifying with thought, you begin to tap into something extraordinary. the field of awareness beneath thought. And from there, you can begin to direct your attention like a laser. And where attention goes, energy flows. This is not woo-woo, this is physics, this is neuroscience, this is your life. Let me ask you something. What have you been unconsciously rehearsing in your mind every day? Because whatever it is, fear, lack, resentment, or peace, gratitude, vision, that's the program your subconscious is running. That's the movie you're starring in. That's the vibration you're broadcasting. And it all starts with attention. But most of us don't control our attention. We scroll, we react, we bounce from one distraction to the next. And every click, every swipe, every notification trains your mind to be fragmented. Silence is the antidote. Because silence reclaims your attention. It returns you to the driver's seat. It allows you to choose what you focus on. And that right there is total mind control, not in the sense of manipulating others, but in the sense of no longer being at the mercy of your own unconscious habits. Let's talk about the subconscious. The subconscious doesn't speak in logic, it speaks in symbols, emotion, repetition, and it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So if you constantly imagine worst-case scenarios, your body reacts as if they're happening. Your nervous system goes into fight or flight, your immune system weakens, your sleep suffers, your relationships strain. But flip it around. If you imagine peace, if you visualize clarity, if you sit in stillness long enough to feel what freedom actually feels like, your body responds, your mind rewires, your emotional baseline shifts from fear to trust, and from trust, life becomes flow. This is not magic. This is mastery. And Buddha didn't stumble upon it by accident. He sat for years observing the mind until he realized that suffering arises not from life itself, but from the mind resisting life. And once that resistance drops, what's left? Peace, presence, power. But here's the challenge. The ego doesn't like silence, because in silence, the ego starts to dissolve. It loses its story, its drama, its identity. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people get in silence? At a dinner table, in a conversation, in meditation? Why is that? Because silence is a mirror, and most people are terrified to see themselves without all the noise. But what if you weren't? What if you leaned into that silence? What if you became so familiar with it that it became your home, your baseline, your default mode? Then you wouldn't just think differently, you'd move differently. You'd stop chasing and start attracting. You'd stop reacting and start responding. You'd stop surviving and start creating. Because in that silence you realize something profound. You are not a victim of thought. You are its origin. You are not a passive receiver of reality. You are a co-creator. You are not a fixed identity. You are awareness itself, fluid, free, and infinitely creative. So let's get practical. If you want to start rewiring your reality from inner stillness, here's what I've found works. Every single time. First, start your day in silence. Before the world grabs your attention, own it. Even 5 minutes. Sit, breathe, watch your thoughts. Don't try to change them, just observe. Let them pass like clouds. And notice the space between them. That space is you, pure awareness. Second, question your thoughts throughout the day. When you catch yourself spiraling, pause. Ask, is this true? Not, is it possible, but is it ultimately true? Most of the time, it isn't. It's a conditioned reaction, and the moment you question it, you create space. In that space, you get to choose. Third, practice micro-silence. Throughout your day, find 30 seconds to drop in the car, at your desk, before a meeting. Just stop, breathe, feel your body, listen to the silence underneath the noise. It's always there, it's just waiting for you to remember it. And fourth, visualize from stillness. Don't visualize from desperation. Don't try to force outcomes. Instead, drop into silence first. Then let the vision arise from presence. That's when it has power. That's when it's aligned. That's when the universe starts rearranging itself, not because you're controlling it, but because you're in harmony with it. And that, my friend, is how you rewrite reality. Not by force, but by frequency. Not by doing more, but by being more. And this is the secret the Buddha embodied, not as a philosophy, not as a religion, but as a living truth. That, in silence, you don't lose yourself, you find yourself. That in stillness, you don't become passive, you become precise. And in presence, you don't escape life, you finally meet it. So now I ask you, what kind of world would you create if your mind was no longer in the way? What dreams would you bring to life if you trusted the silence within you more than the chaos around you? We're nearing the core now. Because in the final part, we're going to explore the most radical idea of all, that you are the silence, that your true nature is not thought, emotion, or even identity, but the awareness in which all of it appears. And once you embody that truth, nothing can stop you. We've walked through the noise of thought. We've seen how beliefs shape reality. We've begun to understand that silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the space where clarity, power, and truth are born. Now we arrive at the final layer, the place where even the idea of mind control dissolves, because here there is no mind to control. There is only awareness. There is only you, before thought, beyond thought, beneath every story you've ever told yourself. This is the part most people never reach, because it's not just scary, it's disorienting. It's the death of the small self, the ego, the identity that clings to names, achievements, fears, and memories, and yet it is the birth of who you really are. Let's pause for a moment. Right now, in this very instant, you are aware of these words. You are aware of the thoughts they trigger. You might feel emotions, maybe curiosity, maybe resistance. But behind all that, there is something noticing. That awareness, silent, still, untouched, is you. Not the personality you perform, not the mind you manage, but the raw, open, unconditioned presence that simply is. You've always been that, you just forgot, and that forgetting is what Buddha called ignorance, not stupidity, but mistaken identity. You mistook the clouds for the sky, the thoughts for the thinker, the roles for the reality. But the sky remains no matter how many clouds pass through it. So now I ask you the deepest question yet. Who are you without a single thought? Not who do you think you are, not who you've been told you are, but when all concepts fall away, what remains? You can't answer it with words. Words are part of the illusion, but you can feel it. Right now, drop in. Listen not with your ears, but with your being. Silence. Still. Alive. That's it. That's what Buddha touched when he sat beneath the Bodhi tree and let every illusion burn. He didn't become something more, he became less. Or rather, he dropped everything that wasn't real. And what remained was not a person, it was presence itself. Infinite, unbound, free. And this is where total mind control becomes total mind transcendence. Because when you realize you are not the mind loses its power over you. Not because you've defeated it, but because you've seen through it. Like seeing through a magic trick. You're no longer a puppet of thought, pulled by invisible strings of fear, desire, and memory. You become the observer, the witness, the space in which all things arise and pass, and that space is untouchable. No anxiety can survive there. No insecurity can take root there. No story can limit you there, because stories need time. They need past and future, and awareness is always now. This is the final teaching, the one no one can give you, but you can discover in an instant. That peace is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. That silence is not something you find, it's something you are. And that power is not about control, it's about alignment with what is. Let's get intensely practical for a second. You're going to leave this video, the world will creep back in, the mind will start talking again, and that's okay, that's its job. But now you know something you can't unknow. You are not that voice, you are the one listening to it. So, here's what I want you to do, not as a technique, not as homework, but as a return. Every time you catch yourself spinning in thought, pause, just for a second, take a breath, and ask, who is watching this thought? And then don't answer, feel it. That feeling, that openness, that's you. That's the silence. That's the real. And if you live from that space, everything changes. You'll speak, but the words will come from presence. You'll act, but the actions will be free of fear. You'll love, but the love will not cling. You'll move through the world, not as someone trying to control it, but as someone in harmony with it. This is what the Zen masters meant when they said, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Life doesn't change, you do. You stop being at war with reality. You stop needing things to be different. You stop seeking external validation. Because you're no longer looking for peace. You're living as peace. Let me ask you one final question. What would it feel like to be free? Not in the future, not after some goal, but right now. That freedom is not far away. It's one breath away, one moment of stillness, one glimpse behind the curtain of thought. And once you see it, you can't go back. You can pretend, you can get caught in the drama again, but deep down, you'll know. You'll know that the truth of who you are is not fragile, not dependent on success, followers, money, or approval. It is already whole, already complete, already free. And this is the greatest plot twist of all. Total mind control is not about manipulating others. It's not about optimizing your brain to be more productive. It's not about dominating your inner critic. It's about realizing you were never the mind at all. You were the silence watching it. And in that realization, you become unshakable. You walk through chaos without absorbing it. You face fear without flinching. You see beauty in things others overlook, because your eyes are no longer filtered by the past. You see with the eyes of presence, and the world responds, not because you forced it to, but because you aligned with it. This is what Buddha discovered. This is what all the great mystics echoed, that the kingdom of heaven is not out there, it's here, now, within, and the door is silence. Not silence as a lack of sound, silence as the presence of truth. So if you've made it this far, you already know. You're not just a viewer, you're a seeker, a rememberer, and maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop seeking and start being. Don't chase the silence, become it. Don't fight the mind, transcend it, and don't wait for life to give you peace, bring peace to life. By being the presence that never left. Now, go. Not to escape the world, but to meet it fully as the silence behind every sound, as the stillness behind every movement, as the awareness behind every thought. This is the way, total mind control, the way Buddha did it, through inner silence, through presence, through truth. And now that you've seen it, what will you do with it? Will you forget, or will you remember every single day? The choice is yours, and the silence is always waiting.